That's okay. Just going live now. Hello, anyone who's on. We're just going live now. That works. Got 4 people on, 6 people on. That's it. A few more people coming on. Just wait a couple of minutes. Hi, Chelsea Dan. Good to see you, mate. And everyone else who's on. TT Foley, hi. How's it going? Dave Miles. Yep. Good evening, mate. Right, there's 10 people on now. I did have some notes somewhere. I've lost that. 12 people on. All right, then. Thanks for coming on board, everyone who's on so far. I'm still working out how to use this platform a little bit. What I want to speak about today is refugees. On Saturday, I went down to Napier Barracks in Folkestone, and down in Napier Barracks, they're using it at old army barracks. They're now using to house asylum seekers. The reason I went down on Saturday, and a lot of other people went down there as well, was the fact that the communists were holding a welcome event to welcome the refugees or asylum seekers or whatever you want to call them, invaders, to welcome them to Britain. And so I went down there. John Jones came down. There's quite a few other people there, sort of having a look around and seeing what they were up to. And all of these communists that were welcoming the invaders to Britain, they weren't social distancing or anything like that. They was in a group of over 100. And it might sound hypocritical for me to be complaining about them not social distancing, because I don't agree with the lockdown or a lot of these restrictions that are put on people. But it's not actually, because the Labour Party and their leader, Keir Starmer, are calling for more lockdowns and more restrictions on people. So their party is calling for further lockdowns, while parts of their party, I think 2 branches of the Labour Party, were involved in organising the welcome event for the asylum seekers. So obviously they're calling for us to have further restrictions while they're having an event to welcome asylum seekers. And also next month is Remembrance Sunday, and people have been told up and down the country that we can't go to our local war memorials or the Cenotaph to honour our war dead. And it's absolutely disgusting that communists can go and welcome invaders while we can't go and honour our war dead. The police were pretty good on the day, to be fair. They didn't give us any trouble, but they did not give them any fines. We've been told if we organise the National Front march to the Cenotaph like we do most years, that we face the risk of getting a £10,000 fine for honouring our war dead. But these communists who were at and Labour Party and Union people, the RMT were there, and various others who go to welcome asylum seekers, seem to be exempt from these rules that are being imposed on the rest of us. So obviously that's absolutely disgusting. We went down there, we filmed them and kept an eye on things. There wasn't really any trouble. But what I'd like to talk about today is like, who are these asylum seekers, and like where have they come from? You hear lots of talk from these lefty politicians, and they say that they're fleeing persecution and war and things like that. But I would say that men of fighting age fleeing a war-torn country are not refugees; they're deserters. Britain and probably every other country in the world at some stage has had tough times, and people have either had to or have chosen to stay and fight and make things, or at least try and make things better in Britain, and again, like I said, probably every other country in the world. So by allowing people in that are fleeing war zones, I'm specifically talking about young men of fighting age, by letting them in when they should be fighting for their own country is no good for our country, and it's no good for them. They're obviously deserters. They're no use to their own country, and they're even less use to us. So I would argue that there's not really any countries at the moment that are in a complete state of war. There's a few countries that have got wars going on, but all of them have got some safe areas within the same country, and all of them have also got neighbouring countries that are more culturally and financially similar to the country with which they've left, which they find it a lot more easier to settle in there. Obviously, less benefits, probably haven't got a national health service, but that's the way things are. And another excuse that these communist parasites have made as an excuse for these refugees, and this is probably jumping on the Extinction Rebellion bandwagon, but they talk about climate refugees. And I've been along to a couple of lefty events, and I've tried to ask people what a climate refugee is, and they just sort of turn violent and refuse to answer. So and a couple of them have just sort of said that they don't know, which probably would be the ones who turned violent probably don't know either, because I've done some research online. I managed to find an article in The Guardian, and it was saying that a climate refugee is someone who has to leave their country that they come from because their country can no longer create enough food to grow enough produce to feed the population. So apparently they're forced to leave and come to Europe and Britain. But I've done more research into this, and a lot of these countries that we're getting refugees from, Afghanistan and Somalia, have both almost doubled their population over the past 20 years. When Britain and America and whoever else invaded Afghanistan nearly 20 years ago, it had a population of about 20 million people. And now, despite all the people killed in the fighting, killed by both sides, but killed in the fighting, all the people that have left to become asylum seekers or whatever elsewhere, even after taking all that into account, the population has almost doubled, and it's around 40 million people now. Somalia is about the same. Ethiopia has trebled its population since Live Aid. I was told when I was a kid at school to bring tins of beans in because these Ethiopians couldn't afford to feed themselves, and I did it as I didn't know any better at the time. I was just told to by the school, and so did other kids, and we took them their beans and fed them, and now they've like trebled their population. I think their population was about 40 million at the time of Live Aid, and it's getting on for 120 million now. So all of these countries, off the back of British and American and other countries' foreign aids, are doubling and trebling their populations. That's why they can't feed themselves. I would have thought that every country in the world can grow enough food to feed the population they had 20 years ago. Doing some more research online, I found that they're predicting that with world population growth, that 97% of it is at the moment and is expected to be caused by births in the third world. So, and that obviously doesn't include third worlders that have moved to Western countries. This just includes births in the third world. So there's no such thing as a climate refugee. All of these refugees that they're claiming are climate refugees, they all come down to overpopulation, and a lot of that is caused by foreign aid. I've got John Jones is just about to come on now because I said I'd let him have a few words if I can find him on here. Just going to add him to the stream. Hello, John.
Even Tony.
You all right, mate?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. How's things with you?
Okay, mate. Yeah, you were saying earlier on about down at Folkestone on Saturday. I did mention to the police a few times about them not social distance. I know some of them were socially distancing, but an awful lot of them wasn't. And I mentioned that, and I said about no more than six in a group together. And I mentioned that a few times. And to be honest, they was just looking like the police do. I didn't think they'd do anything, but sort of guppy fish at feeding time. They just opened themselves up. They'd done absolutely nothing. So I thought they was there to sort of uphold the law. If it was us, we definitely, like you've been threatened with arrest. If on Remembrance Day, if there's more than 6 of us. I
don't think it was arrest. I think it was a fine. But
yeah. Sorry, a fine. Yeah, a fine. Yeah, sorry.
I think the organizer gets £10,000 fine, and everyone else £100.
Well, you better start saving up.
Well, no, Richard Edmonds normally liaises with the police, so I'll only have 100 to worry about.
It's absolutely diabolical what was happening there Saturday. Absolute lunatics supporting these people, and also a lot of them. What the squaddy we was talking to said, they was bussed in, wasn't they?
Yeah.
The squad he was talking to, he said that the locals, a lot of them, they were bussed in from other places.
Yeah, and most of the people that we saw that weren't part of it, well, everyone that we actually spoke to seemed to be dead against it. All the dog walkers and people like that.
Like the people that wasn't with them, that was sort of on the outskirts, they was against it. Obviously, they didn't want to be seen or whatever. They might have had sensitive jobs. They didn't want to be seen against it. But I spoke to quite a lot of people, quite a few people.
That's always the problem, isn't it? Like these communists and Reds or whatever, they see themselves as being like rebels and fighting against the system, but they get bussed into places and have no risk of losing their job. Some of them might lose their job because they're actually caught committing acts of violence, but not for their actual political views. They're not going to. If I started phoning around a couple of schools and said, "Look, I spotted one of your teachers at this event," they might get a little ticking off over the social distancing, but they're not going to get in trouble for welcoming refugees to Britain, are they? I didn't see anyone there that I recognised, so I obviously can't report them to whatever schools they work at. But like I said, they think of themselves as being against the system and being rebels and things like that, but they're not, are they? It's encouraged.
Like me and you know someone that lost her job. That she worked for the firm for 27 years. And she went to a demo, possibly 10 years ago now. And through that, someone's seen it on social media or something like that. And she was at this firm 27 years and she lost her job.
Yeah.
So but they can do exactly what they want. They know the law's on their side, basically. And I think it was even about what happened at Dover. There was 95 people from the so-called far right was in prison and about 5 of the opposition.
That
was about right.
I'm not sure if it's 5 or 15, but a lot less than 95. Yeah.
And he said he brought it up with his governor, but who knows? And that's the way the law is. It's totally like if we'd have been there, or on Remembrance Day, if there's more than 6 people, you will get a fine. But they can do exactly what they want, and they know it. It's quick.
Just a quick one. Big Nose has asked here: is Active Patriot still in Dover? I don't really know him. He was in Folkestone on Saturday. I think he's still based down in Dover, doing his bit down there. If anyone in the chat knows, they can help out with that. They're the controlled rebels. We're the freedom fighters. Yep, that's right, Chelsea Dan. Yep. Yeah, so Did you enjoy yourself down there, John?
I'll
Down in
tell you
Folkestone?
what, I didn't know what was actually going to go, but absolutely brilliant, and the drone was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
Pictures you
that was
got.
the first time we've used that actually when anything's happening. We took a drone down there and flew it round and done some filming and taking photographs. The police came up to us as soon as we set it up to make sure that we weren't going to break any of the rules. But they basically said as long as we don't fly over either directly above the welcome event or over the barracks that we were okay. So that wasn't a problem. We had no intention of doing that anyway. So that was all okay. Yeah, I think
Am
that
I
went
right?
quite well.
Sorry, yeah. Am I right in thinking that some of those places our house beside them there was lots of shower units and toilet units between them?
Yeah, there was some sort of like modular units there. I don't know whether they were shower units or boiler houses or what they were, but it was some. I don't think they were generators because they didn't seem to be noisy enough, and a couple of them had windows in them. So the chances are they were. I think they were the most likely to be either shower or toilet blocks.
Yeah. So how much does even that just one facility cost? You know, there's just not them there, and they get £35 a week pocket money apparently, just to feed
Yeah.
them. And how much does that cost? With
Well,
all
it's
the
probably cheaper
hotels,
than an expensive hotel, but it still probably costs quite a lot of money. Yeah.
you've got people to run it. You've got people
Yeah.
to run it. Even what Saturday? How many was 100 police there? Getting on for that.
Probably more than that if you look at all the vehicles.
Yeah.
We probably didn't see more than 100 police in one go, but there was quite a lot.
Yeah, and they couldn't say they was outnumbered and they couldn't do their job. They could have arrested people, or not arrested people, fined people.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
For
Well, the organisers, there's Facebook pages that have got it says the organisations that are behind organising it. Obviously, they have usernames and things like that on there. It's documented who organised it. It's not a matter of 100 odd people just came out of nowhere and had a demonstration. It was pre-planned. On the events page, it said that they weren't going to be doing any speeches or whatever with the megaphone, and that the megaphone was only there to like sort of crowd control and get people to disperse at the end. But they were encouraging people, and they mentioned a few times that they wanted everyone to go and pose for one big photograph together on the field, which is what they did right at the end of it. So it was clearly there was no real. It was not a token gesture. They mentioned social distancing a couple of times, almost just to cover themselves, while there was no real effort made to encourage people to socially distance.
Police went to a wedding in Southall, where I think there was 100 people there at the weekend, and they said that whoever organised that could get a £10,000 fine. But don't hold your breath, especially as it was in Southall. Don't hold your breath. They don't do their job. I don't know what they do. The police these days, they do not do the job.
See, weddings are awkward ones as well because a lot of people have arranged weddings like a long time in advance. We had I went to a family wedding just as we was coming out of lockdown, and even probably like 3 weeks before the wedding, nobody knew for definite that it was taking place because of all the restrictions and what the rules were, and we was literally just getting instructions of what we were and weren't allowed to do, like within the week before the wedding. So you can see how it is frustrating for people, and I'd have more sympathy for someone breaking rules for going to a wedding than to go to some stupid demonstration to welcome asylum seekers. The same as funerals. There was the guy tried to comfort his mother at a funeral, and they actually interrupted the funeral.
Milton Keynes, that was.
Yeah.
I bet when you went to the wedding you went to, whenever it was, I bet you kept to the rules, didn't you? What the rules were at the time.
Yeah.
Of course you did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Well, to be fair, my mum was there, so I had to. People might see me as a bit of a rebel and see me having a go at the police and politicians and people like that. But I'm not quite big enough to back chat my mum. Richard's put up here. I've assumed this is about Active Patriot. Last video he put up was 2 days ago. Not sure if he's still there or not. So I think that's the answer to Big Nose's question. We've done that one, haven't we?
You can't believe how stupid people are, can you?
No.
The squad he was talking to, he was seething, wasn't he? Absolutely seething.
Yeah.
What's happening? As he lives near there, and you know.
Yeah, someone commented on another YouTube video that I put out that he was there in the army about 40 years ago, and had to pay for the privilege. And to be fair, it's been 20 years since I've been in the army, so almost 20 years. And I forgot about that we had to, because it got stopped directly out of our pay. We didn't have to go along and pay anyone, but the fact that we had to pay for to stay there.
Yeah, well, at your wages, they stopped and they stopped your board and lodging.
Yeah, and whenever I was based near London, I used to quite often go home on the weekend, and you'd still get charged for the weekend's food, even though you weren't there.
Yeah.
When I was in Chatham, the accommodation was terrible. There was like a leaking roof right next to my bed. I had a bucket next to my bed that I managed to knock my mobile phone into one evening, and I had no lock on my locker. And I used to insist on calling it a wardrobe to the corporals. It's not a wardrobe, it's a locker. I said, well, it hasn't got a lock on it, has it? Yeah.
Now our people are so stupid. And it's also annoying that obviously that more locals didn't come out, although there was quite a few locals there that was against it. That more locals didn't come out to oppose it. So they know what's going to happen there.
Well, like we've already said, people are scared of getting in trouble. Sometimes there's a genuine concern that people actually could lose their jobs, and other times people can be people that probably would be all right or a bit paranoid about it. Plus, I would have thought if there was a small counter protest that sort of got corralled by the police. I think there was sort of like 20 odd people there. But I think if there'd been a main focal point and a few more people there already, I think a lot of locals probably would have joined that. If another 10 people had come along, then that would have probably like doubled, and there would have been 60 or 80 or however many people. But it's you would think most people must be against it. But even people are worried about, like, even people that don't have to worry about their jobs are worried about their kids. If they get their picture taken in the paper, that their kid would get in trouble at school off the teachers and things like that. Because a lot of these lefty teachers, they will take things out on the kids because their parents' political views.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to put the thing in the. If I can do it, I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, and I've just put the StreamYard link in the chat. I don't think that's going through to Facebook at the moment, but if anyone's on Facebook and wants to come on, or even wants to comment, because I can't see the Facebook comments, go over to YouTube, and it's on my YouTube channel. I think it's also gone out on Twitter. So Celtic Crusaders asked, anyone know if the scumbag at Chadwell Heath got sentenced? I don't know. I heard that he was up in, I think it was at Barkingside Magistrates Court today, but I literally only heard about that sort of after lunchtime. So I don't know what's actually happened there.
Guaranteed, if you've done something similar at a mosque, you could probably get 5 years.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
I think because the problem is that ethnic minorities are seen to be vulnerable, where we're just expected to take it. If you'd done it at a mosque, you'd still be better off than if you'd done it at a synagogue, I would have thought.
Well, we know someone that threw a bacon sandwich at a mosque, and he got 12 months, didn't he?
Yeah.
He got killed in prison.
Yeah.
And he got killed in prison. He threw a bacon sandwich at a mosque.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
He
Bunny
got
from
12,
Bristol.
12
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
And this guy, he was. He should get quite. I guarantee he don't even go to prison.
No, no. Well, it's like all the things like the guy who vandalised. I'm no fan of Churchill, but I don't think people should be vandalising his statue.
Yeah.
And the guy who vandalised that got what did he get? He got a fine. Whereas the guy who urinated next to the statue, the plaque for PC Keith Palmer, it, I don't know the guy, but it looked to me that it was in no way an insult towards PC Palmer. He was just unfortunate with the proximity to it, where he urinated next to it. It didn't look like any of the urine went on it. It just sort of trickled down the pavement. The guy shouldn't have been urinating there, and I dare say he wouldn't have done it sober. But it's nowhere near as bad as actually vandalising a statue. And when people have like swung off the flags on the Cenotaph, and have tried to set fire to flags on the Cenotaph, drawn on the Cenotaph, and they just sort of get away with it, seen as a genuine form of protest. When they had Black Lives Matter, were at the Cenotaph protesting against whatever the alleged murder of George Floyd halfway around the world. They were standing around. It didn't look like they'd been kicking the reefs on purpose, but they'd been sort of knocking the reefs and that with their feet as they stood around on the Cenotaph. And I went over there to sort of like film them and see what was going on. And a young black girl said to me, she goes, was it, "This is Black Lives Matters, fuck the white people," like referring to the Cenotaph. And things like that. And ironically, the reefs that they were, I say kicking around, they weren't really kicking it, but they was knocking around with their feet. The reefs were actually reefs to UN workers, the sort of people who are out in African countries clearing mines to save little African kids. And then they're over here saying Black Lives Matter, and then they're standing around doing that. But the police, I went up to the police and I said, "Look, the reefs are getting kicked around. Can I go and get the reefs and bring them over here to you so you can put out afterwards?" And they said no. So they're just allowed to, they're allowed to get away with whatever they want. Big Nose has put up here that Vinnie Sullivan and James Goddard run at 9 o'clock. We'll be finished quite a while before 9. Well, at least long enough for people to grab a coffee or whatever before their one starts. I'll try and watch that one as well. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to come in the StreamYard chat. I've put the link up there anyway. Shaz said she was going to come on, but she's I don't know if she's commenting on Facebook instead of YouTube again, but I haven't seen any comments from her.
Yeah, I'm off my Facebook ban tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah. All I done, I made a little remark. There was a fellow in Australia, obviously a patriot, walking down the street. He had a Union Jack, an Aussie flag, and a US flag. He was proudly walking down the street, and about half a dozen police jumped on him.
Yeah.
And I made a remark about that. Yeah, that's all of them. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all Western countries, isn't it? Australia, New Zealand, Britain, Europe, America, Canada. Again, but it doesn't seem to be any of these Asian or black countries. It's not forced on them.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know what else is going to be happening down in Folkestone and at Dover and in Penally and things like that with all these asylum seekers. I don't know what the police are doing to keep an eye on them.
My brother read a thing. I told him about it on Monday, and he read a thing about from the Kent Messenger or something, and it mentioned what happened at Folkestone, and he said there was a far right demonstration against it. Apparently, it said that in the Kent Messenger.
Yeah, yeah. But again, they call anyone far right who doesn't agree with their agenda, just not wanting to flood Britain with third world invaders is allegedly far right.
in North Wales, sorry, in Mid Wales, that camp, I forget the name of it, where there was hundreds of them that were housed there, or barracked there, and the local people had a demo against it, and I don't think there was any fight, I don't know, but it just looked normal people, and the press called them far right.
Yeah, they always. Well, I think that was South Wales, wasn't it? Penally.
Yeah, wherever, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like you go out past or Cardiff and Swansea and that, go a little bit further along that way. I think it's down there.
Yeah, but wherever, if you say anything against what's happening now, you're obviously far right.
Yeah, it's the same with everything, with all these queer pride demonstrations and things like you speak out about any of that. Again, back to the guy urinating next to Keith Palmer's plaque. People have been done for indecent exposure for stopping to go to the toilet somewhere that they shouldn't, and in the past have been done for indecent exposure for it. But yet you see on these homosexual pride events, people waving all sorts of bits around in front of kids. Surely they're the ones
wearing these mankinis where everything's hanging out.
Yeah.
And there's children there. And now Bill just look, in fact, a lot of the police join in, or some of the police join in, enjoying it. Remember Andy Burnham, it's in the news at the moment. I remember him at a homosexual parade. Well, I wasn't there. I've seen it on the internet. When he was really enjoying taking part was Andy. You know, the guy he's got in the news now, Andy Burnham. Yeah. He was really mincing along, enjoying it. Old Andy. Yeah.
To some extent, he's a politician, so that's one thing, and then it's up to people whether they want to vote for him or not. But when the police do it, and it's absolutely, they had a demonstration about a year ago outside. I'm trying to think now. It might have been the Brunei embassy or the residents of the Brunei ambassador or somewhere like that, and all these homosexuals were waving their banners around. And the police looked like they were taking part in it. They weren't just there, just like keeping an eye on them. They were they're dancing around, and the way they do their nails and things like that, and decorate their police cars, and they claim they haven't got enough money. They have to shut down police stations and things like that. But
enough money to paint cars.
Yeah, well, I think it's stickers, but they still must have to pay pay for them and put them on and take them off. And
the times on demonstrations, I says to the police, sort of tongue in cheek, "Why don't you join in?" He said, "Oh no, we've got to be what's the word?
Impartial."
Impartial, yeah, we've got to be impartial. Impartial. They even take part in the Notting Hill Carnival.
Yeah,
they take part. There was one where this policewoman, I don't know if you've seen it. She was standing there in front of the railings, and she was like getting side shagged by this big black fella against these railings. This went on for about 10 seconds. Have you seen it?
I did. Yeah, was that about 2 or 3 years ago? It was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. This policewoman, little thing. This black fella was sort of making all that he was making love to her from the side, and there was a big black policeman there. He was just looking on, and I don't know if anything ever happened about that.
I think they call it grinding, don't they? When it's sort of like simulated sex, isn't it? It's not really sex, but they just sort of like go through the motions or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, with a lot of these people, it's part of their culture. I was listening to a podcast with David Lammy earlier, and he was actually speaking more. I think he's a bit more candid, and he was speaking a bit more sense than he usually does. He actually it's the first time I've heard him admit it. He may have admitted it before, but he more or less admitted he got selected for his seat in Parliament by the Labour Party because he was black. But again, he said that particularly black males tend to come across as more aggressive than whites, and are seen as sexual predators and things like that, which in many cases they are. And in a lot of countries, it's probably acceptable to behave like that towards women. Obviously, it's not here, but in a lot of countries it is. And these people aren't compatible with our way of life.
But that's a minimum of us. If you do that to a policeman or policewoman, that's a minimum of us. If you touch them, that's an assault, isn't it? You'd be nicked for it. And he was doing this for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Fella. His hips were moving in and out, and he was she was against these railings. He couldn't move. And I don't know if he ever got charged with anything. Probably not.
I doubt it. No.
Yeah.
Even just
Yeah.
the drugs they do and urinating in people's gardens at the Notting Hill
Yeah.
Carnival is.
I've worked quite a few people's house. There's massive houses, sort of £5 and £10 million houses around that area,
Yeah,
and it's an absolute nightmare for the local residents. It's an absolute nightmare. And
yeah, they're
they've
getting
got
boarded up. The gardens
board,
boarded up, don't
even
they?
their basements. They've got to board up their basements so full
Yeah,
of urine and other stuff in it, or needles
yeah,
and whatever else after the weekend. Yeah, yeah,
and they have all the knife arches and this, that, and the other, and
yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy. The amount of drugs that must already be in there from the local gangs. It
It's
seems
another
sort
thing.
of,
It's out of control, isn't it? Drugs. You can see it on the streets. The police they just do absolutely nothing. Absolutely.
virtually every day in Croydon.
Yeah.
You smell people driving by smoking it and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If people started driving around with a can of beer in their hand, they'd be getting nicked. But it seems like drug driving is a lot more acceptable to the police than drink driving.
Yeah. The way it's going, I can't see any point of the police because they do absolutely nothing. They're out in force, and the commanders look good in their braids and their uniforms. They look very smart, but they're doing absolutely nothing they can't protect themselves. So how are they supposed to protect the law-abiding British people?
It's a difficult one, really, because you've got a combination. There's still good coppers about who would like to do a decent job, but it's the orders they're given, and then you've also got a lot of the newer ones who've come in who are sort of all up for it and love being a social worker rather than an actual police officer. Yeah. But a few people have said about Cressida Dick and getting rid of her as the Met Chief of Police. But you'll remember, John, that time we went along to see Sir Bernard Hogan Howe in Croydon.
Yeah.
And if they get rid of Cressida Dick, they're just going to get another lefty liberal police officer who will probably be even worse than her. I'm no fan of hers, but there's no point in replacing her while we've got the present establishment selecting her replacement.
They're getting these people the top ranks in the police. They're getting fast tracked, aren't they? They're getting fast tracked. Apparently, you're joining it. They don't have to do much. All of a sudden, they're an inspector or something like that because they're a right lefty and this and that.
Yeah, but I saw a video. It was probably filmed maybe just over a year ago, where Cressida Dick was in Parliament getting quizzed by the Home Affairs Select Committee, and they was really giving her a hard time for not recruiting enough black police officers, and for the way the stops and search are carried out against blacks and things like that. And to be fair, I felt sorry for her. She sort of held her own a little bit. She tried to explain a couple of things, but obviously she couldn't say what she was thinking. They all knew anyway, and that we know that the reason that more blacks get stopped by the police is because they're more likely to be committing a crime or a violent crime anyway than a white person.
Yeah.
And the other thing they don't take into account when they're working out the statistics with stop and search is an area might be half black, half white, or half white, half non-white, but yet they're sort of 70% of the stop and searches. But when you take into account the age of them, because they tend to be younger than white people, like most pensioners are white. In Croydon where I live, most pensioners are white, most youngsters are black. So the people that are say black non-whites make up 60% of the population, of that, the sort of age group, sort of teenagers, early 20s, they probably make up 80% of the population. I'm guessing at that statistic, but a lot more than the 60% that they make up of things. So and then also when you go out, because they've got like key mugging times, haven't they, and stabbing times, and traditionally it used to be like late at night, like pub chucking out time. But now with the stabbings, they tend to be after school. Tends to be the worst time for stabbings going on. So if the police are trying to fight crime and they want to go out and stop people at like between say 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock when the schools are chucking out, and then again at 11 o'clock when the pubs are chucking out, or 10 at the moment, but usually say 11 or 12. If the police go out at them times, because I've walked through the north part of Croydon many a time at that at night, and I must have lots of times seen 100 non-whites without seeing a white in between. And I'm not. It's not that bad. It's not that bad during the daytime. It's still pretty bad, but it's nowhere near that bad. But if the police just went out and they said, right, we're going to stop the first 100 people we see, in somewhere around West Croydon or something like that at night, they're probably going to land up stopping 95 non-whites, 2 whites, and a couple of people haven't got a clue what they are. And the statistics would show that they're being racist, but we all know that it's not racist. It's just the way it is.
Just totting up the yeah.
The same as with drugs. They reckon that, like, if the police stop a white person with drugs, they're less likely to charge them than if they stop a black person with drugs. But it's like when they stop a white person, they're catching him. It's not right, but they're catching him with a joint or a little bit of something. Whereas a lot of the blacks that they're actually charging, they're stopping them with like dealer quantities of it, not like personal use, but stuff that they're actually. So they're getting charged for being drug dealers, where whites and other blacks as well are getting cautions or verbal warnings or whatever for taking user sort of quantities. And it's also the way they react as well, because I've been arrested a couple of times. I've never been charged with anything, but it's just once they arrest you, you know you're arrested. Yes sir, no sir, whatever. Like, I might give a few facetious answers or something, but you just sort of go along with it. But I've seen blacks when they've been stopped, and again, it's not all of them, but a lot of them. And they start giving it all the gangster. They start telling the police, "Oh, you don't know who you're effing with," and this, that, and the other. And you know, they're not making. They're committing further crimes by doing that.
I tried that once when I got arrested. I said, "You don't know who you're dealing with," and they just threw me in the back of a van. But what's happening now, Tony? And it's happened quite a lot of times. Police arrest someone, or one or two policemen arrest somebody, within a crowd gathers and they won't let them out. And you know, have you seen it on it? The crowd gathers, so they just won't let them out.
Yeah,
and this happens all the time.
That's another thing. That's another thing Cressida Dick said in the parliamentary thing I was talking about earlier. One of the MPs on the panel was saying that the police being too forceful, where they do a stop and search, and a car turns up, stops someone, then a van turns up, and that the police are using too much force. But what she said is, she didn't mention race or anything like that, but she said there's like areas in London where the police know that if they stop someone who they know is a drug dealer and a gang member, it'll draw attention from the public, and they'll be having to contend with. They'll be having to contend with members of the public, giving them grief for stopping someone. And these aren't gang members or drug dealers. These are just ordinary members of the public. Because you've got people like David Lammy and Diane Abbott. They put it into people's heads, especially a lot of these ethnics, that the police are against them, and the police are picking on them, and this, that, and the other, which isn't the case. So then you get members of the public getting involved.
Sorry.
What's that? Sorry, John?
It's the other way round now, isn't it?
The
police pick on us. The police pick on us. We've seen the way they treated Black Lives Matter. Week when they was kicking the hell out of a couple of white guys, and they were saying, instead of getting their batons out of the place and whacking them, they were saying, "No, you mustn't do that. Please do. Please don't do that." And the guys were getting kicked to pieces on the floor. You know, they're frightened to go near them. The police. It
all comes down to the Macpherson report. I've said this a few times, but I'll say it again. part of the findings of the Macpherson report was that the police must improve relations with ethnic communities, and they should aim to score evenly across racial boundaries in public satisfaction surveys. So basically, if white people get asked, do you think the police are fair? Most people don't really have anything against the police, and will say yes. And then a lot of the blacks, they're actually more or less canvassed to give the police a bad response. These MPs and community leaders are basically encouraging them to say that the police are racist against them. So no matter what the actual what the police are actually doing, they're still told they need to improve. To put it in perspective, if you looked at a football match, if you said if a football match was played, and then one lot of fans started singing the referees, whatever they tend to call referees in football, that's like the FA saying, "All right, the supporters of that team don't like you, so you need to improve things with that group of supporters. So the next time you referee those two games, you need to try and play it a bit more in their favour to try and win them over." And it's just not going to work. Same as with like red cards or something. If Man United played Liverpool, and the referee yellow cards 2 Liverpool players and red cards another 2, and only gives 1 yellow card to Man United, that's like saying the referee's obviously a Man United fan, without actually looking at the game. And this is what's happening with policing. They're not actually looking at the actual policing, what's happening. They're just looking at these statistics and reading them one way when we all know it's another way. Same with more blacks landing up in prison. It's like moving the line in the sand. If the police arrest less blacks, then the blacks know that they can get away with more, and they push the boundaries more. So they land up still arresting the same amount. So if in 10 years' time you landed up with a thing where you said like blacks are allowed to mug people on weekends, but they can't mug people during the week, they'd still be doing it. You might have like 6 months where they're content just to be mugging on weekends or whatever, but then they just start pushing the boundaries, and you'll be back arrested. The police will be back arresting the same amount of people that they were before. If someone's not I say someone, I'm not talking about ordinary people, if someone of a sort of gang type mentality, someone who thinks they're Billy Big whatever, they're going to land up in prison. Whether they get sent to prison for their first offence, second offence, or 20th offence, they're going to land up in prison or dead. And the same with a lot of these black gangs. If the police go easier on them, they're still just as likely to land up in prison or dead. It's just they're going to do something more serious before they land up in prison or dead. James Goddard's it was a little while ago. Now he's come on. He said, "Evening, Tony. Evening, John. We've give your plug for later, James. You're on at 9, aren't you? So we've mentioned that as well. If you want to put it in the comments, I'll put it up there as well."
Like these people know, like even those idiots on Saturday, they know the law is on their side, and the young black criminals, they know that they got very little chance of getting caught. They know it. They know they got, and they know the police won't go near them. And like, why the police? Like most indigenous Britons are law-abiding.
Yeah,
aren't they? We're a very law-abiding country, you know. Well, we was up to about 70 years ago. Very easy to police country. Easy to police it was.
Yeah.
No problems at all. But now it's not. It's a nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't like to be a copper now anyway.
No.
It's not like the Dixon and Doc Green.
As I told you, my brother's an ex-policeman.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to him a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and he said when he joined up in the 60s or the 70s, they was told, never ever take a step backwards, even if you're wrong. He says, well, it's only a couple of weeks ago. You
Yeah.
never ever take a step backwards. And now they're running away. Take
Yeah.
a step back. That's what they was told. Even if you're wrong, so you're sort of supposed to be a commanding figure.
Yeah. Yeah, I was taught to have respect for the place, as was most people, weren't they? But now it's difficult, isn't it, to respect them? A lot of them.
Oh yeah. Well, so like I said to that one Saturday, I said, you haven't done a lot the last sort of 6 months to enhance your popularity with the people, and he sort of agreed. The way they behaved, the way the way they behaved to that Extinction Rebellion lot, that have just brought the capital to a standstill. They wouldn't have done that to us. I remember years ago, if you blocked the road for 10 minutes, they either steamed into you. They said their ambulance has got to come here and this and that, and you're stopping the emergency services, and you had to move. But not these people; they can do what they want.
Yeah, I think with Extinction Rebellion, they were sort of in the middle, weren't they? Black Lives Matter got it the easiest. Extinction Rebellion got it a bit harder than them, but not anywhere near as hard as we'd get it. And then, to be fair to them as well, because I was there when the guy spray painted the Churchill statue. I didn't realise at the time, but I've actually got a little bit of it on video. I'm trying to improve the quality of it because I wasn't actually filming that. It was in the corner of something else I was filming. So I'm trying to get that. But one of the stewards from Extinction Rebellion did try and clean it off just using some water, and it didn't budge with the water, which makes the excuse that he claimed that it was just some sort of chalk-based paint, which I think it must have been something a lot stronger than that. Because if it was chalk-based, I would have thought it would have at least got it to run, even if he didn't get it off properly, he would at least got it to run, putting water on it.
I think that guy only got off. Was he a vicar's son or a pastor's son?
Something like that, yeah.
He got fined. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it was. To be fair, it was saying like £1,500. It wasn't just like a 40 quid one, but it was still, compared to, like I said earlier, the guy who urinated next to Keith Palmer's memorial stone. Again, that was meant as no insult. I assume it was meant as no insult to PC Keith Palmer. It just happened to be next to it.
Yeah, he got 14 days, that fella.
Yeah.
And he could have walked across the road, and there was toilet where people was using different things as toilets. And that was only he was obviously that drunk, about 20, 30 yards away, just across the road by Tesco's. And he could have done it there. Obviously, he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, again, also you've got to remember that at the time all the pubs were shut as well, so there wasn't anywhere that you meant to be able to go to the toilet to go.
That's pretty much,
I wasn't up there that day, but if I had been, I wouldn't have been drinking. James has said, "Fair play, Tony and John, for going down and confronting the commie snakes." We didn't actually confront them, to be fair. We just sort of hung around near. We walked past them, taking photos and filming. Then we went into the field, set the drone up, and filmed them with the drone. So it was probably still at a reasonable amount of risk if we got recognised, but we didn't actually confront anyone.
They filmed us when we was walking past them, didn't they?
Yeah. They probably do that to most people, or if you just. Yeah. I think if you're not smiling at them as well, they sort of think, "Hang on, who's this fella?" and that.
Yeah.
I'll probably call it a day now. Like I said earlier, James Goddard's got his program on his channel at 9 o'clock, so that gives everyone anyone who wants to go on there 35 minutes to get a coffee and whatever else. Thanks for coming on, John, and thank you everyone in the comments thing. I know I didn't have a chance to. I didn't put everyone's comments up, but what am I doing now? I'm trying to work out. No, I'm doing this wrong. That's it. Just put the thing there. Don't forget to subscribe and go on the YouTube thing. All right, and so
what do I do? Press the subscribe button.
If you're not in the thing you're in, John, but anyone who's watching on YouTube, just click the subscribe thing. Are you actually on YouTube, John, or just on Facebook?
Well, I watch it. I don't know.
All right.
That's typical me. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that we have a Zoom chat, a National Front Zoom chat, most Sundays at 11 o'clock. I'll try and remember, and I'll put the link once this video goes up. I don't know, for some reason it takes a few hours before it goes up on the normal thing, so I'll put the link to that in there. But if anyone fancies coming on next Sunday or the Sunday after to have a chat on Zoom, everyone's welcome. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks, John, and thanks everyone in the chat. I'm going to sign off now.
Cheers, Tony.
Cheers.
Catch up with you soon, James.